Ajero, President NLC. Let me thank the sponsor of this motion for his presentation. But let me put, that's a constitutional right. But you make laws under a democratic dispensation for the people and on behalf of the people. And that's why we are here. Any law made outside this understanding has ceased to be a law. So I needed to make this clarification. We can't challenge you in either making laws or amending it, sir. We respect your office. Let me talk briefly on if even the name of this amendment or this act, Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund. I need to say that when you talk of employees' compensation, it's clearly different from social insurance. And I think we need to look at it either dialectically or legally to know whether we can change the name. And all the operators here should understand this. So if we are merging them, we should think for a name to represent the two, so that it will be reflective of our amendment and proposal. I was given 3 minutes, but I don't think I have a presentation here. In the first instance, the NLC, through all social partners, have worked on tripartite amendment of all laws, including the NSITF law, which was sent to the Ministry of Justice. Up to now, all labor laws, and it has not been amended up to now. And I know that the chairman of Senate Committee on Labor should be aware of this. And they are talking of legal drafters up to this moment. The NLC is concerned that this is a tripartite board. The NLC is equally concerned that we should not have abortion before pregnancy, and that the stakeholders should have owned this amendment, owned this law, either the employers, government, or labor, because you are doing it for us. And it's important we understand it that way. All of us should have come here clapping and not coming here to defend positions. That's the sense of consultation which could have enriched what we are doing here today. And the NSITF is all about workers' interest, and is done by the tripartite. Even the appointment of chairman at a stage, we insisted that it must be revolved between labor and government. At a stage, Adam Soshomole was the chairman of NSITF because it has to revolve. The idea of appointing 8 government representatives, and maybe 2 government labor representatives, and maybe 1 employer representative, negates the principle of tripartism anywhere in the world. And it has never happened. So you are taking us to boardroom politics, where the employers, where the government representatives is to neutralize the position of other stakeholders. This NSITF is not funded by government, and it's better we get it clear here. So if it is not funded by government and employers contribute for in the interest of workers, so I don't see the essence of playing politics to neutralize the influence of workers or their interest. If you do that, our money there is not safe. I think we should be, ordinarily the stakeholders should have complained. And if they complain, you will help us, sir, to do it. But even if when you want to cry more than the bereaved, I think we need to make input. And I think that's why we are here. Well, the NLC has followed this. There are some amendments, even the Employee Compensation Act, which you talked about. The level of compliance, sir, is not up to 30%. And these are the issues that I expect us to work with the Ministry of Labor, work with the NSITF to make sure that we ensure compliance, even from the informal sector, for it to participate. Of what use do you have for laws that are not complied with? The existing one, and they are here in a position to explain whether the compliance have reached up to 30%. I think we can enrich this fund. We can do better rather than battle over reporting. Now, the amendment talked about reporting to the minister, and I'm happy the Minister of Labor is here. The MD of NSITF or whatever should report to the board. And the board, from time to time, can approve his report to the minister as a supervising ministry. That's the reporting process. Not reporting to the minister. And if you do that, you are making it maybe a parastatal under the minister. NSITF is more or less, as of today, being funded by the private sector. It is not a parastatal under the ministry. And I think that this is for us to understand the reporting scheme. And you went further into the law to talk about NLC representation, labor representation. Minister of Labor is here that on tripartism, you have labor, government, employers. Employers have so many organizations within them. They manage it. But here you want to divide our own, categorize our own. What is NLC, NUI, TUC, whatever. That is not for our own solidarity. It is not the duty of the National Assembly to determine the fourth leg in tripartism. We have three legs: employers, labor, and government. So when we go to labor, as we go to ILO and others, we determine the number of representation we have. I'm rushing this thing because of your mandate. I don't want to disobey you. There's a lot of ambiguities. The bill grants the agency and its board the exclusive powers to formulate, enforce, designate, and determine key policies and criteria. Check section 3G, 51C, and 50. Without contravening force of a strong tripartite board, these powers can be used arbitrarily to the detriment of both employers and employees. The NLC demands as follows: the sanctity of the tripartite governance structure. The tripartite structure of the existing management board under ECA must be preserved and strengthened. The core of the fund's governance must remain equal representation of government, employers, and labor, ensuring no single interest can dominate. We demand enhanced workers' representation. In the true spirit of tripartism, labor should have an enhanced representation. Safeguard must be maintained. We demand that the bill explicitly provide for an independent investment committee composed of financial experts with representation from labor, employers to protect the fund's assets. The board autonomy for ministerial control. I've said that. More focus on strengthening and not weakening. Instead of this amendment that negates the essence of dignity of the workplace, the National Assembly should focus on strengthening the implementation of the ECA, expanding coverage to more workers, improving claims processing, and ensuring prompt compensation for injuries and diseases. It should be more about workers' welfare, not seeking paths to compromise a full safe fund contributed as a result of workers' toils. This bill should be, with NLC demand that this bill, you should stand it down. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hello. Um,
My name is Thompson Akpabio.
wait.
I work, sir.
I'm coming. I'm coming. From today, your name is Charles, not Fabio.
I've not been Christian again. I work for Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, one of the stakeholders on this bill, and I have the permission of my DJ. But I'm speaking for and on behalf of the organized private sector, businesses in the organized private sector. In our position, we've listed nothing less than 30 of them in this our position, and it's a 12-page position paper. Being the voice of business in Nigeria, we just want to touch on one or two things. NECA aligns itself with the NLC on tripartism, absolutely, because that has been the principle in which the bill, in which the NSITF, in which the ECA was even conceived, and we shouldn't depart from it. Now, one of the current positions of this bill is that it weakens the tripartite structure. It kills Section 102, Section 144. What happens to it? We are signatories at the ILO. We will be case stated by June next year, before the ILO, if we don't go. So we should revert back to it. Number two is that what happens to the issue of fiduciary control? Mr. Chairman, I refer you to Section 8 of the bill. And Section 8 sub 2 says, the MD shall be the chief executive of the board. I don't understand. That means there should be no chairman again. And if he's the MD of the board, if the chief executive of the board is controlling the board function and administrative function, the day-to-day running, it creates a problem. Mr. Chairman, that is it on this bill. It is that's the bill that was forwarded to us. And I'm referring you to that, and that is fiduciary control. Mr. Chairman, number three, we look at issues of employers' contribution and assessment. If we are looking at employee compensation, it is different from social security. Those are two different things, and we should stick to employees' compensation, because currently it is only the employers in the private sector that are on this scheme. And because of that, we are the only people funding it. But if we are going to social security, Mr. Chairman, across the globe, social security is done in Germany, employees. In US and Denmark, government. Also in New Zealand, the list is endless. But your Section 48 here pushes a burden on the employers. Number four. So we should look at that and go back to it. Compensation administration. The same people administering the law, the same people determining it. Enforcement powers, up to the point that they deem things it necessary. The punitive and overreaching provisions are of concern. Leveraging on the ILO convention, we should even be strengthening the NSITF and not killing it. Mr. Chairman, the subject of corporate governance should be there. I'm a member of ICSAN, the Charter Secretary, Charter Administration. So I will be able to tell you that that structure is a no-no, because it will kill the fund, it will kill the existence, and we'll tell the NLC and the workers, oh, we have paid. Let your workers go and handle it. And I can assure you there will be a lot of fatality in it. If we want to reform the NSITF, we should go the route of social security. As we are proving, fine. Insurance industry. Let's go the route of the insurance industry, where it is handled by maybe the GTB or a guarantee, any of the insurance. If we want to go that route as we are proposing, let's actually transform the NSITF into a proper social security institution, but let the tripartites, let the social partners sit down, review it, push their concerns, and be able to go forward. Now, we want to go into some of the details. Mr. Chairman, I refer you to some of the sections of the bill, because I know you are looking at your time, sir. Mr. Chairman, Section 72 of this bill robs the Honorable Minister of his powers, because what is currently in the law in Section 64 of the Extant Act says the minister may, on the recommendation of the board, make regulation. The minister, on the recommendation of the board, make regulation to give effect for the effective implementation of the act. But what we have in the bill, section 72, goes to the effect that the board may make regulation or orders. What happens to the minister? What happens to the minister? It's been thrown aside. So the board, the NSITF now usurp the powers of the minister. That's one. Mr. Chairman, section 71, sub 1, says any aggrieved person may appeal to the board again. So the board tells me you cannot do this, or you are not entitled to this compensation. I will now appeal to that same board and say, please review it. What happens to the National Industrial Court? They've taken away the powers of the National Industrial Court. So on that note, injured workers, sorry for you, because that would be the point that is a no-no for you. That shouldn't be. We should have the concept of separation of power. Mr. Chairman, we're going to look at section 27 of the bill, sub 7, section 52, sub 2, section 53, sub 3, section 72, 4, and on and on and on and on. In fact, that goes to show that the board, the NSITF, will make regulation. They will publish it in a gazette, not the National Assembly. The NSITF make regulation, publish it in a gazette, implement it, and enforce it.
Speaker.
What happens to it?
Speaker.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I'll be rounding up. I say my time is up, but just 2 more points. Just 2 more points. Just 2 more points. Just 2 more points. And to that 2 more points, I refer to section 70, sub E of this, to the effect that the NSITF shall have power to seal up a premises with or without an order of court. With or without an order of court. What does that mean? Since 2010 till date, I don't think the Nigerian police force are on this scheme. So they should start with sealing Louis Edet House, where you have the IGP, sealing all police commands and formation across the country. They should start with sealing local government. So if we give the NSA short powers on their own, they wake up and they feel that you have not complied to their satisfaction as they deem fit. They decide to seal a session of the National Assembly. It will disrupt the processes and activities. What does this call for? National crisis. Imagine the National Assembly being saddled with the responsibility to confirm a nominee to service chiefs, and that's settled. Then I seal the entrance and the premises. It will try that in the private sector. Sir, the focus on the NSITF on this scheme should not be the private sector. Please,
you've said your point, sir. You said you've written your point now.
It should not be. So in conclusion,
Chairman.
In conclusion.
No.
In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, we strongly urge, respectfully, and recommend that this committee of the National Assembly look into adopting the framework of ILO Convention 144 on tripartism. Secondly, that this bill should be stepped down. Let the social partner look at it. Consultation. I thank you.
We are very democratic here.
Again, I recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister of Labour and Productivity, Alhaji Dangyadi, and indeed the Permanent Secretary. I also, of course, recognize my critical stakeholders, the President of Labour and the President NLC and the President of NECA. Indeed, this journey here started sometime in 2024. And sometimes when agencies and national assemblies collaborate in the form of undertaking retreats, coming from outside, you tend to think that sometimes it's just perhaps a jamboree to just engage and have some time together. But this event today has demonstrated to me and my team the need for consistent and sustainable engagement with the National Assembly. Because, I say this because it was sometime in 2024, August to be precise, that we had our first retreat with the National Assembly, comprising the Senate and the House of Representatives. And in that event, we were asked to speak about the opportunities and the challenges that confront us as an agency, and we laid everything before them. And one of the recommendations from the communique, or one of the decisions from the communique at that retreat, was is to undertake a review of our enabling act. Now, that event or that process started not long after that. But even at that, I didn't pay too much attention to it because I felt it was just, general conversations and nothing much was going to come out of it. But here we are today. So really, I appreciate the tenacity of the members of the National Assembly. And I'd like to, speak, I will just basically touch, because what I see from this exercise is really, this speaks to the key issues that my stakeholders have raised, which is a tripartite engagement structure for the agency, given our very specialized and important role. And I don't think that there's any forum better suited for that than what is happening now. We have the labor representative here in the person of the president. We have the employers representative, particularly in the private sector, in the person of the NECA president. And those two bodies, for us, represent the tripartite nature that we're talking about. And I say, and I've said it again, that in the course of lawmaking, the lawmakers have the distinct right, responsibility to promulgate laws for us. But of course, we as stakeholders, both public citizens and private citizens, have the right to also be heard. And this is the sort of forum to do that, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to also, of course, correct the notion by NECA that they are the only contributor to the fund. The federal government is a contributor to the fund, and we're making effort to ensure that the states and local governments are also participating. So it gives a much more sustainable model. In terms of compliance, and I'm now touching on the act itself, or the bill itself, because much ado has been made about the level of compliance, and that we should focus on increasing that for compliance. If you read the bill, you will see that efforts have been made to ensure that we bring more people insurance trust fund. And that's why you will see, one, asking or giving us more enforcement powers. My view about the enforcement powers, just to respond to your powers, to your fears and concerns about sealing of workplaces, is that we are subjected to a much more legal framework for exercising that power. So we want to be able to, and this is something that I'm sure we'll do on a more technical level when looking at the line-by-line clauses in the Act, that whenever we have the cause or need to do that, we will subject ourselves to the law courts to make a case for the reason to do that, and then that can then take its place. But you've also spoken about the issue of appeal. Appeal does not lie with the board, and I think it's important to correct this, because last week we were at the National Industrial Court's engagement where this matter was discussed, and now you've raised it that we're appealing to, or we are mandating subscribers to appeal to ourselves. If you understand how we work, compensation modules and compensation amounts really is determined by compensation team, our claims and compensation department. And then from that decision, appeal lies to the board. The board has no role in determining what the compensation quantum is and all of the indices that we take into consideration. And I think that that's a very clear appeal structure. From the management decision goes to the board, and indeed if you then have a challenge with that, you can go to the National Industrial Court, and I think that saves people time and effort. The last point I'd like to make regarding some of the comments that have been made relates to the role of the MD. You had said that the MD is now reporting to, is the chief executive of the board in the new bill, and that's still That's what is provided in the NSITF bill. I think what we've seen in this act is, for us, what is important is the clarity in governance structure of the agency. I think from our own perspective, we are mindful that every power that the board has, as it is, must be maintained. And that power is in providing oversight to the management, in providing checks and balances, in providing regulatory oversight generally. And we've looked at the bill, we've seen that those powers still exist, and we appreciate that. But what is clear is, or what is necessary, is to distinguish clearly between what the role of the board is and role of management. We've seen from our operational experience that there could be some overlay in that. And that overlay has been aptly spoken about by someone that presented there, which is in the manner that the previous act was drafted. Whereas we recognize that people have different legislative drafting styles. And this particular style that has been chosen for NSITF Act presupposes the board to be the chosen word for whether you are referring to the fund, whether you are referring to the management or the board. And that creates for an ambitious protagonist of that principle, that creates an ambiguity, and we like that to be addressed. But we're particularly, just to highlight some of the key areas that we're happy with, the repeal and promulgation, the repeal of the NSITF Act and the ECA Act is included in what we've written. Of course, the name Nigerian Social Security Trust Fund, the change of the name. Again, this idea, this forum is for us to listen to experts, listen to subject matter experts on the issues at hand. We don't feel very hard and fast about the name. Whatever name that is adopted, that is necessary, that describes what we do better, we're happy to have it. But I must make a point. I must make a point that, and I think there's been misconception that employee compensation is not social security. I know that people here who are conversant with ILO conventions and all of that, employee compensation is a component of social security because it speaks to welfare, not in the way that the general insurance does. It's a component of social security in addition to other social security. Yes, as at present, we will seem to be operating only the employee compensation scheme. But if you look at the NSITF Act itself, it gives NSITF other powers or mandate to undertake other social security activities, which we've not been doing, and which have been, which we've not been doing. And I mean, we've made the point that some of those roles have been balkanized by other agencies, and I've also made the point to my colleagues that, look, let us focus on the employee compensation scheme and do it very well. If that is what we succeed in, then others can take up the gauntlet of undertaking any other social security for others. But at least we'll have been seen to be proficient in that. So I think it's very important to understand that. But we're happy for any name that may be chosen. I think another point that is very important is the clarification of what total monthly payroll is. We've had back and forth with employers' representative on what payroll should constitute for the purpose of calculating what should be paid. And we say it's also important because it's also used to calculate what should be paid at the end of the day. So from an employer and an employee perspective, there will always be divergence as to what payroll should be. An employer wants the payroll meaning to be much more restricted. Employee, I dare say, should be interested in having it expanded. But we are, of course, in the middle because we work for both of them. But it is important that that clarity is in the Act. And of course, and I'm sure NECA and every interested parties will make their case and their points to the National Assembly for that further clarification. Of course, we welcome the inclusion of electronic submission of claims because it will reduce delays. We particularly are grateful for the inclusion of the informal sector, because like you all know, the informal sector, like my people from the POS operators and some of those people that have made presentation, is perhaps the most important sector of our economy, given the number of people that they employ. And until we're able to provide this social security for them, we will not be cracking at the issue. So we're glad that they've been included. On our part, we'll use that platform to devise means and ways to accommodate them in a way where their contribution can be done in a much more sustainable manner. Of course, we're happy with the replacement of the Independent Investment Committee with a board-led committee, because what we've seen is that even though the Independent Investment Committee is in the act as it is, it's never been utilized. And it's not utilized for a reason, not because we don't want to, but because it's so unwieldy. I think that the board has the right expertise and the right tripartite constitution in terms of NECA, in terms of NLC, to ensure that there is transparency in the use of that fund, and then layering it with another independent committee is really, wasting resources. Of course, there's been talk about expansion of OSH enforcement and all of that, but by and large is to commend the National Assembly for the progressive and timely reform that aligns with global best practices. And I would say again that this bill is not in any way perfect, but what is important is I urge all stakeholders from the ministry, from NECA, from NLC, from organized private sector to please, and of course, Nigerian Law Reform Commission, to please come together. Let us look at it. Let us find the best way to make it work and make it work for Nigerian workers. Thank you very much.
I wonder listening to your presentation because I share that of NECA and one of the things applied to the robot others supported it. What will be your remark now?
What is the question?
The question is, what is the position of NSC concerning the public
Yeah, but our position was made clear in the hall. Yes.
But at the end of the day, we know we are where democracy works. The majority of other presenters supported the
yes.
for that bill.
Yes.
That is why we are asking.
And that's why we said, I said that democracy is government of the people for the people, And we have spoken. It's left for the Senate to take it back from our various presentations. So I don't think it's a matter of we no go agree. The law is clear. Even from the minister's position, you know that everybody wants the organization to survive. And any law that will make it not to survive, it will not be for our interest. We don't want to have an NSITF that will collapse very soon. An NSITF that will be growing from strength to strength. And every concern you are seeing here reflects that. Either the minister's own NECA or NLC representing the entire labor movement. So that is what we express here. And the person that wears the shoe knows where it pinches. And it was from that perspective that we came to talk. Some of us have sat at the board of NSITF and we know the challenges there. So we have to look at those challenges and address them. Not to give them an assignment that is too very Herculean. So, and we have to equally clear state what we want to do. If we are talking of employee compensation, we'll come on it. Even under this arrangement, you can see old men's benefit, old men in other advanced countries, and then you can see the social security, which affects every Nigerian. So, if the National Assembly want to go into this, they can split even what they are bringing together into about three laws. There are countries that take care of their old men, and you have what we call old men's benefit. It's under these guys. You still have the social security proper, under these guys. and then you have the employee compensation under this guy. So we have to name it, and separate it from what we are doing. And when we now talk of even social security, we should only determine who funds it. It's not 1%, and it's not this contribution that you use to fund social security for every Nigerian. So we need to be clear on this, and when we do that, I think we'll be good to go.
Thank you. For Nigerian law reform, made a lot of the one on social. I addressed it at my presentation, and just to further speak on it is that employee compensation scheme is a component of social security, and it was important to really address that so that people don't run away with a wrong impression. And social security comprises of pensions, workers' injury compensation, like I said, employee compensation scheme, and grants and support for indigent, poor, elderly. There are all sorts of social security. What we are mandated to practice and to execute is the employee compensation scheme, and is indeed a social security. Is very, very critical for our economic resilience. Like I've said in past fora, a resilient workforce is underpinned by schemes like this, schemes that gives them comfort when they are injured or challenged in the course of work. And when you look at the support, ultimately, if that is robust enough and sustained in our economic activities, it gives us the workforce the confidence that whenever anything happens to them in the course of work, then there's an agency of government that is responsible for taking care of them, and that's very important.
Thank you very much.